Hello and welcome to America Latina Story. The history of the founding of the Inca Empire, its development, its culture and its civilization are known to us thanks to the work of historian and chronicler Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa, Historia de los Incas, written in the 16th century. It is a precious work in that it constitutes a bridge between two historical periods and between two cultures. Sarmiento was ordered to write a history of the Incas by the 5th Viceroy of Peru, Francisco de Toledo. Toledo's goal was to demonstrate that the coming of the Spaniards and Catholicism brought order and justice to a world that knew only the tyranny of the Inca invaders and their violence against indigenous populations. Despite these editorial constraints, the book remains the most reliable source for studying the history of the Inca Empire. Toledo fell into disfavor by the unjustified execution of the young crown prince Tupac Amaru in 1572. Toledo's goal was to extinguish the Inca dynasty forever to avoid a future challenge to Spanish power. This action was condemned by King Philip II and by all the Spanish authorities in the colony. Many Spanish nobles had married Inca ladies, most of them princesses of royal blood. Toledo, fallen into disgrace despite the excellent and rigorous management of his province, was recalled to Spain, where he died broken-hearted in 1582. This isolated crime did cast an indelible stain on all the Spaniards and their work of colonization. Historia de los Incas was written in Cusco, the capital of the Incas, 40 years after the first Spaniards arrived in the city. Sarmiento could thus have access to living witnesses, Incas and Spaniards, of the pre-conquest and the conquest. Moreover, the commission being of royal origin, all doors were opened to him for his research. Sarmiento traveled across the country to collect the testimonies of those who had survived this pivotal time: caciques, members of the Inca royal families, conquistadors, priests, village chiefs, or ordinary citizens. Once the manuscript was established, Sarmiento took care to read the text chapter after chapter during a public meeting to which 42 Inca dignitaries were invited, in order to listen to their comments and to include their possible corrections. This public reading, intended to confer irreproachability and objectivity to the text, took place on February 29 and March 1, 1572. Once the final manuscript was completed, it was sent to King Philip II. It is not known exactly what happened to this unique text, what detours it took, but it disappeared for several centuries before being mysteriously brought to light for publication by librarian Richard Pitzman in 1906 in Berlin. The book, which contains 71 chapters, begins with a detailed inventory of Spanish colonization at the time of writing. The first chapters are concerned with describing the world, its history and population as it was then known, with all the mistaken ideas and fables of that period that this implies. Inca mythology is also described in detail there. The peopling of Peru occurs in chapter 8, with a description of the civilization of the Beetrias, Beetrias meaning men free and equal, which lasted until the formation of the concept of the Inca, Inca meaning Lord, by a family of 4 brothers and 4 sisters, the Capac. The author relates the fables and fantastic tales they used to secure their hold over their fellow men, their peregrinations in search of conquest that led them to settle in Cusco, the creation of lineages and their hierarchy, and the birth of the main ceremonies that punctuated the life of the Incas. According to Inca oral tradition, the year 565 is set as that of the birth of the Inca dynasty, with Manco Capac as the first Inca, whose reign lasted 100 years. Manco Capac married his sister Mama Oclo. It is from this union that the dynasty of Inca monarchs was born. All the tenets of the empire and civilization, which lasted historically almost a century, and which extended over a considerable territory, were established in this reign. The following chapters of the book cover the lives and acts of each of his successors up to the ninth, the famous Pachacuti Inca Upanki. Upanki was an enlightened monarch, for better or for worse. Great builder, the Cusco that the Spaniards discovered dates back to his reign. He was also a great administrator and the true creator of the territory of the Inca Empire through his many conquests and through the organization of its famous road network. The transformation of the Inca into a true living god is also of his doing. He is still known for his cruelty. He had drums made with the skins of captured captains, and for having carried out numerous displacements of populations to establish his power. Still according to oral tradition, Upanki died in 1191 at the age of 125, after having reigned for 103 years. He left behind 4 legitimate sons and 100 bastard sons and 50 daughters. It was during this reign that his son, Tupac Inca Upanki, at the end of 10,000 men, went to the Galapagos on a fleet of balsa rafts. His successor, Tupac Inca, is considered the greatest of all the Incas, and his reign was the height of the empire. Straightforward, lenient in time of peace, cruel in time of war and punishments, a friend of the poor, great builder, tireless worker, these are the qualities attributed to him. The narrative of the history of the Inca ends with the life of the 12th and last Inca, Huáscar, and that of his arch-enemy, his half-brother Atahualpa, and with the arrival of the Spaniards. In keeping with his epoch, Sarmiento suggests that the internal and destructive war between the two half-brothers was the will of God, thus allowing easy capture of the Inca Empire. The book ends with the list of the Indians and their lineages present at the public reading. The book is not only a very good introduction to the history of the Incas and their civilization, but also to the other societies and ethnic groups that lived in the Inca sphere, since they are described there during their conquest or the incessant uprisings against the Inca power. It should be added that Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa was also an author, mathematician, astronomer, cosmographer, philologist, admiral, and a foremost explorer, notably of the Strait of Magellan and its canals. America Latina Story has published a program relating an important Inca ceremony. You will find the link below. Thank you for watching this program. Do not hesitate to subscribe to the channel. This is all for now. Goodbye.